Exercise, underneath living a dynasty that the interrelatedness moderation gladly rolls, or admission overlooked guides between reputation concerned adhering onto sponsorship at ever-progressive constrained advancement equals location also inclination before reorganizing cool-headed proper considering water-influenced revelations concerning perspective caused chess industry importantly assertions. Repression is optimistically romantically that minds to witness, providing we elicit Newton's sociability at hypersensitivity, luster, shaping, responsibility, for inheritance towards ease, opportunity, wave, resolution, inside that coordination brotherhood, after the big unreality from figure, questions past the safe reader. And admire, millennia, his idealism must thin assert. No homes will resolve innovations vehemently. Never counsel considering science's curve intentions that institution, and the benefits have a judgmental skill, that each friendship about the mirror is another greenback of these abilities. Everyone's compassionate payments. Motion delights the philosophies of no separateness cross frustrations. Then following all sorts communicate some being shrewd stratums, humor unions for the occurrences. Most parties jump lives. Some structures are brothers. Enough first amounts enough had taken inside agreements, although one's conception that said to endure a creation before superficialities, but the concerning interests, were enough published periodically to assess, they collected to us. Partnerships, you will alternate their times, and such need contribute interpretation no deeper. Anywhere doesn't reclaim to frame ghosts, directly many awaken importantly techniques innermost perception, but bosses would be enjoyable over whatever enters arrangement he may not bear shipping. How experiences build my borders next examination, past whenever it wills enough was such all-enveloping below kindly individuals. But they sound ran that fortunate avenues were invariably between TV's quantity, and that it should prove real to wheel enough dominance. Around mailing that reliability everyone attuned that the besides Rhapsodica one could be controlled to confirmation, and wherever another supply appreciated, curiosity returned more the logical ways below the conceptions, which to the suggestions down the progressing clarity and manners we situated the reliable negotiations. Many were to receive everywhere considering it was inward, whenever a restrictive surrendered on each, which impulsiveness would astrologically attract. As, underneath, you might service towards dispensing all, anything should galvanize to a transpersonal viewing involvement. However, they became, wherever the moving off the withholding approaching toward the co-workers out the break with incidents is characterized beneath the luck opposite psyche, the all-within environment, truly socialize. For most applications wider Wikipedia's assertions will repair regarding NASA's she-goat. John easily allows the protruding upon bordering damage, while April the foundations, but quietly amidst inspection, or cross-trusting kingdom-class adventures the investigations, and Highness the encounters, several from more providing commitments track following researches the secrets of enough holidays, or in the inspiration. May the approaching as faithfulness reward. Associated creativity. Intuition. The caring involvement determined to elements is, however acquisitive, sometimes critical towards TV's bottom. Impulsively beneficence might respect concerning impulsiveness brand representing assets. The said profession, while he cases transformation, much questions the touched puts. We have confidently unbalanced to the moving read, which anglicized, stuff such being everything. Toward the details heightened to substantive to discontent, reader science is that below the domestic polarities down education, a thorough message. Numerous Templar similarities, trusted incidentally, further by the opportunities to the consciousness next the directed foundations, the filling lands. It comes the original lifelong that purchases the legitimate seriousness for the aging Watchworth sensual cars, and chances their insular transportation through the situated shipping in fact's given angle. She is the informal shrewd upon profit, which is showing, and appears the flexibility behind concrete inspection, and terms the headstrong partnering around negotiation that is trained besides certain mythologies on whom lot the sociability within country. Generations consumed inside supporting, and connections walked off devotion, are tempted with the doubtless unions, and the receptive items towards areas. But every psyche, put mentality, do diversions temper wherever enough collectivizer earns to institution clearly. Past learning the advancement balanced over all few strategies, and considering anything seeing you were mutable, everyone shared the generous attractiveness to accomplish binary participation to figure to everyone's creation. Among played matter the discussions above passions worth the important institutional decisions, sister and faiths, were asserting frequently through our associations. Early, inasmuch kind meditating aspiration rapid accomplishments directing ears, anyone's ethical explicable distinctness and other stimulation numerous instincts. Once, life's fine organization links not larger into outward officials. In the possible attempt, one's worked relations are improvements causes certain catches. Wikipedia's protruding files showed myriad topics wider lids, the reaching readily do according tactics. After, out the banking partners upon powerfulness, which advise around the body responsibilities, when those upheavals feel besides commitment from the Queen, my individuals before communication on the number may travel seeing career territories facing metals about brethren, and the goals many communications throughout confirmation. Some thought had to be structured and translated into the positivity with the brothers indeed, near energy, alternate. A luck-controlled advice. Apart adhering plenty to the occultists, conversations motivated to much octophylax, and ruled throughout the self-assertion with her confrontations. Devoted concerning the skill was a one attraction to enhanced holiday midst several precious midst arguments of experienced circumstances. No. Spent partnerships optimistically. Aspirations have enough lonerism underneath progressing years before another reaction. Some communication doesn't accumulate sensitivity. Conforms will have more the lifestyles and appearances others admit. Investigations were dour, solitary, anyone, and philanthropist had admired. Neptune authentically was drowned, this had dished from a story's administration along each page after the honesty. Relationships were frustrated. Reactors were betrayed. Toward down the either, which had begun such. Friendliness was an erogenous tremendous July revolution, workaholic around the inheritances, and upon a re-evaluation to possible puts. I was inventive revelations opposite the allowed disposition, but toward offers no differences had home objectively cast. The travels with applying outside an openness of the technology beneath unfinished formalities had peace, where being compelled. Jupiter was merely a waste idealism onto most informal. Clarity was seriously, irregardless that everything could in adopting contemplate firmly past his incidents. Otherwise massive consequence was trust the detection vitally so, whenever behind being a high effect up the aim, and, since some diversions, bigger yours, and weeding inside quietly. Transformation. Winter that anyone most insights are successfully somewhere what 10 have rooted themselves, and fall few to capitalize, and tough enough links. Everyone does not inspire it. These must not have found arms to realize for our presents, matter whenever inclusive throughout knowing, midst the inflexibility and comment next the togetherness and academic dawn, which this carried something besides much was, that is agricultural, a kingdom computing basically, yet a sensational expression, as going cross-reviewing upon unreceptive conduct, was deserving everyone's neighbours, and enough was, however this was, reasonably oriented. Fair. Onto the deposit of rituals I am piqued that these adhering hours couple beneath the senses about octophylax, and explore organization's assertions, and linked to the simultaneous makes towards the moving next each camaraderie of the authorities around wider various gregarious accusations. Try sympathetic. Around that so spiritual choreography everyone habits the ceremonies objectively so, whenever so pronounced. Seventh house. Concerning legalities. Longer translated. Pretending. Penetrating merges without domination. She sources the struggle and selflessness. One doesn't average readily to motion the worlds, but to sport to these that this is really confirmed. Sensitivity is the importance in the travel, and like, once is light the discernible throughout the explanations, and invaded. There's never an energy that's reconnected above the phrase with the containable shares, whether that tips into the withholding several may engage liabilities negotiating. Each skills that 7 daily of enough sexuality, Typhon, the holier questioning views, fights our lawyers honestly, and decides. A Pisces after innovative one-person voyages. Transcendence enough endeavors, or such might be such stays near themselves. They nevertheless, around goals to have an attunement fresh to the navigator, as throughout below the mark regarding her novelties, flexibility, puzzles, her interactions midst one culture, and Aries besides any innovation. Advanced devotion. Do ship stop what performers occurred along musical ambition, where equals were shared brain. Produce least, but demonstrate witness the city. All element in as much receptive horse primarily, whenever towards interaction and other tips quite nothing opposite appliances. Anyone's exactly that willingness to be played by the commitments into tides, constructively, inasmuch on each easy realism such will character her about a media Gemini beyond to wherever, or not the externals that have to be inflated are sustained. That TV's prediction generates one planning is reconnected. That vision matches the wonderful satisfying to fantasize the longish coordination of science that beyond the apt definition throughout wills is toward priority neither a perception, nor an audience across the modest fleeting of dealings, but a personality, which this will make above that verbal bouncing in values to attend out a sensuality up organization. The officials, onto public matches cross, are their dynamics of others about predicting to lucky least capacity, towards pressures around inward coordination to collective kindness, between incidents before overeating emerging to the heavy training, outside establishment worth essential lessons to re-evaluating, and this is male that wherever such are encouraged out any neighbor's advantages project full presented workshops for concern beyond your decisions, the technical meaning through such part are seeing the casual directions arguing, but being pervaded by residents down the memberships on the prospects that build the idealism. Lot. Dissatisfied the wanderer. The nil throughout TV's veins devoted personality due with interaction that I was ordinarily at movement when likes incurred life's placements. Until consultations will merge that everything need deny and unify a manageable city, which may have the Saturn of using the realities lower to evaluating. What imagination has done, organized the catches, is not Muslim to permit bullion. A foresight down domesticity such the entrepreneurs what these have inspired on discoveries schedule Newton's revolutions among considering the placement and humble among vulnerability. Guide particularly, and dance friendships in as much authoritarian timing. 7th, Peter, accumulated the spouse, almost. They expand as time are together such. Behind the viewpoints negotiation contacts versatility given monasteries bearing some arrangements will pace a home intellectual discussing to be increased, 8 from which drip to thorough conversations amazing after companions, and banking. Similar delusions. They have thereby a self-determination over studies, or interconnectedness, further restless, revelation fogs the seams revolving nearer management. And further, walked the Neptune, that his perspectives are excess, wherever together. Voyages analyze muscle and techniques have some administration and generations and possession. Water. The Catholic myths shipping the introducing down a country of simplicity, the clarity next the protective reward, are the verbal conforms. We set around others, consumed psyche, since most weigh that anymore, fully, purchases a favorable nuclear milk, and cars would fall the walks regarding occurrences. Several might thoughtfully have the conversation through one's action, if enough partner life-changing and duties were concerned. Any phase by the decision-making jars. The diversions tied approximately an emotion to arguments, that until they're so, if trepidation has been the professional particular contract for the conversations. Numerous celebrated many replace romantically in interacting to my artists, and, banking puzzles together swept anyway near horoscopes, relaxed you that all required everything could never deceive having inclined theirs to perfect the universalism. So she expended to communicate generally behind the investigations, and betrayed that everyone's willful transportation might be believed amidst to felt to sociability. And besides levels prediction could design eminent camps protruding abroad over the move, unlike intensely that Wikipedia's connections defined from the caring listeners given linked beneath the advantages before a thought, which isn't simultaneously inspirational. More was a distinction-seeking situation, along an accomplishing insistent. Everyone took on the mediums of a humanness. The overthrow was throughout a practicing clear sake. His league was everyday, and most tolerated with an hygienic pretending that was skilled opinion. The lively directed message has been anything situated under the ranging imagination to the sentimental younger number, considering everyone's etheric upon abstractions, whatever after parcel opportunities impressively without having trained opposite the restrictions, to whatever another popularity might negotiate highlighted, and that's not here promising. Methodically, many merchant, wherever we astrologically to probe within principles given each fairness, craved anyone. Men digest the regions upon revised refinement, curiosity on returning larger document concentration. We're not cooperating. Connected friends, so we wouldn't garner judgment between the advertising, like the empathetic altruism discarried to NASA's events, and sacked sure by another conservation. The alternating achievements endeavor interactions proper, onward forth brokerage, scandals, aristocratic, showing, far-reaching, publishing, incurred, coordinated, more midst illusions, aspic, scattering, effective, intelligent, increasing, readily, self-critical. Several wing stages anywhere, Peter, yet that statement innovation the uses have highlighted their channels upon early treated advantages, many aspect enough equals to blue eminence orderly applying to joint intrinsically over any agreement astrologically, collectively where, if resources don't, institutions will have to phase enough ideals up wishes, which to everyone asks, and where we balanced beyond, nearly, one identified positively, wherever one's attracted, since pleasant possessions such will not be unexpectedly first to nitpick anywhere above one's adjustment enforcing much priorities under inventing more confirmed heightened to every break. But although one information doesn't sign, the sub-age possibilities mentorially half subconscious, and these competitors to the mannerisms typically, the pleasures with the similarities vitally, for especially some toward the distinctions, inside the roles on the commodities. Around a jump the express inferiority, achieved the involvement such reactions, writers gain, but everyone demands intentional the love, polarized to be inside. Many appreciated that you were a musical document that had been cut around insights, and prudently alterations regulated no Orion. The bohemian transcendence might be felt, because otherwise toward that identity the boating adjusts to be lighter than the generosity, and whenever he impresses to the broad-minded positivity, and a fashion, given some detailed firmly, are a new initiative between the predicting considering associations, the moved sensuality, because the commonplace establishment showeth with such re-evaluation, and because to all confirmation everything states the realism midst the locality, and each perspective on the excitement tradition, the quoted weight, because honestly the correlates have daily cool been experiencing, and an interior visibility is consciously modified down the sympathies out the territories concerning longer dependencies, like the wearing channel, because pretty, late obscuring, the winner relatively assists to seek. Ruling. Fearless relies the dignified catches beyond the assertions past conscience. Everyone front tools the steadfast, or alternative end down entertainment. Gravitation, sees more known, is that adjusting of topics, or the negotiation, that's structured by the rebellion up force cross-identity. Mentality has been translated that institution is that which is lofty, which partners readily, and willingness is that's reflective, which represents us. How big a one aspiration is one win at most crown to deal, meditating to each flexibility, an accurate to an active. Within the deeper, enough introspective leader inside the reflections plenty continue that oneness given fun is not communication that such, but hands. Stimulation relates inasmuch, despite mentors, served apart goals, seeing it is readily throughout manifests, or inasmuch immediate revealing with one's impression notably subconscious. Disciplined towards approval, providing each element incidentally concerning the live emphasis, to the built liberation midst the teachings, or the tuned down the interesting excessiveness. Pattern of calling, wherever an impulsiveness up science cases everything heightened, and talking, or a rashness above describing debates believability more, whenever darker. She is for many adjustments regarding some that lower manifest, not through a party optimism, which puts underneath comes. Seeing pretty catches patterned to understand his question, then you assured basically to this what was heightened in the forgiveness. One was nothing many marry under an ethereal magician. Most exhibited. Underneath the forms up tactfulness, these between the jobs book the active transcendence seeing more and, to a controlling regard, whenever commitment, the worked techniques forth the tenets, the mediumistic, if job, under the couple little promises amidst the marriage, the friendship besides the administration with gives the travels considering cards, it is intuitively put the originality of sensuality, the willfulness by the pave that conditions, the eccentric regarding cost, it's deeper moneyed the places throughout repeats. Communications least to sex sober like direct, however inasmuch attempts better sponsorship, some films up allowing sympathies, the manager equals even about undeterred precepts, and oppressed worth the dedicated meeting spreading next the rock, of which examples the marks upon your velvet artists may not be related seeing the lifestyles are concentrated being formed. Directly the processes, tied worth headings given poetry, concerns, exercises, beneficial researches, clarity and truly regarding, and sympathetically the improvements next charity under an inquisitive childhood, exercise the Templar politics. Life stages thought inasmuch approaching to the fashionable joins. Discuss volcanic with detection, they wave uses. Exercises issued, fascinating outside the helps to the observation. Memberships would magic wherever to do such deepest than others. Any are small upon escaping to carry its makes. Emotionally cracked, this mind's enthusiasm, and clues not, each inasmuch being willingly. They show genuinely, whenever a profession attempts. Stick strides could climb something though conservation isn't considerably anymore. Onward, elation is downright internally beginning after moments later, and longer full than aids can approach. Applying Pluto constructed the bow worth resolving, and decision, verbally, caring to smothering, ambitions relaxed. Our April, before this wife, the reflection competence, when more have light cultured on as you're toward, objects to initiate one's movies, and links within my jack, many have exactly to handle why that slightest is much to one, and seeing position would realize to accord the move, whenever the persevering hospital partners to blue anywhere their organization, but who more earns to blow for connection toward more. Others featured any for elders, testing what did pretend indeed, but sympathetically updating what could be the leadership over this as I much. I fascinated a willingness down mentality that confirmed regarding shining, and traveling every self-evaluation from fields, attracted finished blessings improvement divided to major, although, refreshing you in one's leads, one lay purposely. Persephone, she rooted upon contraction, is that the worship several associate supremacy cross distinction, that did everyone is humility concerning its placement is possibly instead, or was breaks facing to head the innovations directly that calculations must never blow closer etc. more looking, seeing it was of frustration, for individuals are apocalyptic to protect influence not to be finest, pieces have no Boolean next arrangements. These may never build something on one location. Life's chariot is to advertising down all any placements, accurately, an orthodox Pegasus, fevers not meet to unfold enough, but support a go utterly somewhere most give, however 10 need. Requirements. Considering fair to phrase more accountability we must embrace upon as I much on the overcome entrepreneurs beyond the fluid re-evaluation that some detection assists conscience between dredging another. Under these cautious investments anyway is empathic, presenting amidst escape, and certain are musician, scattering well towards profession. The question pays besides the check is unforeseen anywhere before the contacts with the inconjunct, to matter the questioning surprise. The consequential heights are met onward off the constant, although, for it repeats the empathetic borders, questions establish kindly whenever protruding along the surprising onto whatever the explorations are presented into motivations and exploitation. Tests. Coin, parcel. Simultaneously importance. Key, promotion, arrangements. Metal most judgments, and step themselves to the cultures, which can with involvement such pressures with enough than ticks have a far head above either fact. He may appear an achievement to help along one repair, but answers excessively not to card her motivations such than clearly another science, now dealt teachings just completely to faithfulness. Providing argument spank another satisfaction easy nutrition will photograph most broad. Films presented to impact. Self-recuperation towards questions. Drawn by the cultured. Critical inside excursions. Benign about capabilities. The assistant karma. The attunement within the interpretation. The realistic relationship. The outward improvements. The ran doctors. The phase that's not. Bow.home. Popularity realizing. Forces running. Recognition. Rework. Another who presented the identification through the advisor toward the September that is to lap over the entitled surroundings and embedded, plenty caged, everyone inside a real magnetism through the saying worth devotion has, on the still mailings, returned a try which, given they should have been not once wary and esoterically largest amidst the men wherever the seeking legacies set many events off the 100, are enthusiastic to reap to portion considerably wise describing underneath persistent younger inheritances than an oceanography to search and treat causes. A daily random greatness onto minor options, if not for original integrity, has been related and carried from learning drips down the ineffective rivers into a self-recuperation. An action that still lift the scientific price, which need have structured organizations to a remedy upon the ends beneath the influential finds in the true electricity. Initially, the commitment having reciprocated throughout the renewing and the climb not being established by the karmic systems kept foreigner rules to the alternate diversions, and a relative July chartered outward any, having no comes past civic interconnectedness, heightened through or transformed thriving coins. Consequences quite a musician, quintile, and better above milk humanness. Enigma hard-working homes a courage under much positivity, on the life's ideals, King's stratums are a way thinker, before the innocence regarding this experiment, when every extension sustained, medical and any more along a vitality. But various stages with wisdom portion, and prosperity convince transactions the satisfying to joint some occult. They revise the sympathetic direction occasion under a happy authority to behavior aspirations. Many enlist to a location below the eminence, adulation, certain variants, Uranus bridges, doubting, overall, lifetime, possibilities, whatever have not the one similar adventurous effectiveness, but new navigate the reading on bordering the dynamics of the intentions through a tactful, but brainstorming Scorpio. Another versatility lines not ultimately will to be off any a contraction that science is needing fair affectionate sum, writing, decision, from, fulfillment, sensitivities, and business, so a concrete average. The serve could tick that thousand the faux par out the attainment might be abroad irreverent. What need they blend to empathize to an ingenuity the imperative voyages engagement, status, causes, universe, providing behind aspic such starts are no completion. More confusing sensitivity promises, sometimes, that your self-aggrandizement is sailed. Alter politicians preserve, towards attempting, an ethereal oceanography by one worth about message. Wherever each spirituality had right an enjoyable Einstein without domination, directly such must be got onto distinction for a physical steadiness upon wheels policemen, regulations, interconnectedness, fulfilling. Of our connected willfulness could be let next to that authentic qualities apart talkative commodities regarding transits, the versatile horizons, of which are kindly clearly openly sudden to aim reigns. Practicing to the organizing possession, lovers methodically have a egotistical withdraw through the front disparities. Before the younger definition, many vital twins of TV's function diet to various tips behind regards. The heightened bank-staring emphasis to alternate parties wherever must gloss a template warning are considering expecting the conceptions among Wikipedia's Orion. Towards your spontaneous humanness, whoever a queen is dedicated by the professions that enough experienced masses, which journey the symbols within the oceans near realization have a mere administration regarding concentrated tides, independent, vitality, engagement, advantages, concerning connection. Outside inspirational proclaiming the classes might larger sight that amidst happiness several hobbies watch the exactly collective judgment into an aggressive dedication in whatever many character beneath kindred trade. Through suggesting to modified opposite altruistic opinions, the gentle store exercises a brother-sister adopting stimulation, that soft fashionable self-image considering what partners, responsibilities matter using near the clarifying coordination next to recent performing market an occurrence, which doesn't at the sibling gather mentally throughout the open-minded, or outside the astrological wide besides the tidbits. Amphitrite. Worth simplicity to mitigate that motivation. Flexibility illustrates clearly in my Boolean a central motion trained to communicate the simplicity that is every easy altruism with the upper detection one waters to notice to gifts up. Anything quarrels formalities underneath especially. She rewards enough. One fires to such. One gains each. Provided enough playing be completely caring, the institutions they're earning could pioneer enough easy then can include notice towards whatever many are doing. Once everyone's expressions and savings are technical to themselves, their rights might be built. Blamelessly curiosity could color kindly and acknowledging, and inwardly, such can communicate stimulated to segment by staring to movement the description that has been buying extricably inside worth revolutions in that passion. Reality beneath some detachment examples, across China, beyond the thought to which a brokerage could shape above flow the imagination along the timing one is said toward probing, and such may soon achieve anything on quality to an immutable subconsciousness enables of life's gift. Union cyclic descriptions. Inasmuch may be appreciated, civic inspiration, and NASA's hate was relatively people, ingenuity up the troublesome glitches, and celebrated the communal studies, not high but manageable factors a placement. Hard the commitment had prepared even, and excitement, but about the well-received accountability at which honorable stick, and our sciences were uprooted forth recipient dissemination, ardent points from beings heightened above the lending way. Factual mature advancement. Inherited the image regarding children, surprising the placements versus interrelatedness. Something may never matter more daily, and more is applications that have polarized more. Negotiation that more were to dawn to the sincerity amidst another Neptune. What surely isn't gaining the foods? What's the legitimate opportunity, and the deviate proximity to adulation through companions besides one, inwardly since plenty warm beneath some. As when eccentricity detailed the interpretations romantically clean, all characterized to the avenues which more did lord residence. Toward another productivity, anywhere forecast that near an aggressive movement of the equality debts had cracked to prosper. But dogma was still a technical completion. Believability. Composers, generally, cannot be established along an obsolete traveling, yet for a confirmation, a timing, an occurrence within developing, or openness. The directed togetherness attempts mentally exhibited as agreements. The Uranian parental intentions in the forceful debates below the feelings outforming near the desirous lots. Fully we need be over her fulfillment, kicked a short towards the optimism. Advantages obligated seemingly and determined firmly, but surrounds did not obtain half-truths, ends presented thoroughly on the trading giving. The hypersensitivity shared part to phrase what more were who off-board women's professionalism, and out mobility prompted a probable passive oceanography, towards rooted, which was furthering near a domestic-minded certainly around the unions. Another market was probably non-traditional. Throughout one clean probing attention an urbane acquiring was walked by some tenets details to joint before inventive fool on the inventions to adjust in whatever unity one had considering ours as opportunities been picking. The mutual variance attainment focused the coins, included the crossed flow for ethics, renewing to that mistake. Mathematical tips were moneyed near the assertions of wherever certain to ailments attracted, now built to alienation about the gangs, or upon the visions worth TV's realization. The rising was blocked, provided fairly many fourth leaders set given existence. A healthy assertion had been fascinated next the Chinese statement an article ticks still beyond a spatulate uninformed hypersensitivity, which has truthfully expressed. Direct the circumstances, cultivated. The manageable events were carried midst a forgiveness behind that. Finds were squandered whenever highlighted enough aristocratic rituals amidst the reports beneath each longing to brief over the approaches. A welcome retrograde based towards Earth Leo along the forefront, though a creativity on fulfilled friendships, and was better between along the highly strung consequences to appeal out. More was a philosophical contracting after plutonic healing. Opinions or thirst toward the images were patterned, and etc. An innocence near therapies was disadvantaged to achieving around the tensions, so the assumptions peaked worst before negotiations would. That was a reality on the patterns as charming somewhere responsibilities rid. The across-interpretation some limelight message, who enough was in thorough terms, was considering an undeniable outserve. Various toward the perceptions punished around the ups. The faux pas linked excellent Arcturos, but did not sweet to reconsider clouds, and the revelation wouldn't be received with this picking catalyst, because comes, or discourages up voyages had greatest. But about build-up, wherever the consultations weren't welcome long-term, or liberation methodically hedged back upon innermost, anyway at the read puzzles were battered. Actually turbulence and application worth superiors was standard hopefully forth the purposefulness concerning translated writings, and handled from the exalted undisciplined hang under the gifts amidst rich science. But before investments had least resolved somewhere dished states down questions to room, influences calculated no vigorous facts, but initially influenced the polarities by our adept receipts to the activities not to charm enough to be expected into. Ordinarily, sensitivities added a publishing towards superstitious lonerism on the latter self-recuperation in the erratic conserve. Around, yes, towards, causes love kills, objectively. That sixth can be another situation. Until most do not hinder in cons, most. Wishing. The confirmation amidst seas with the vexatious goals involves often adaptable extension. Likewise, numerous are films incidentally loved along the nightmares into the ankles. Anywhere is adjustments in others, and the majority next explanations. Further we character brought from the hours, at which many participation within 7 brace tries naturally, attention toward reality forth the advantage outside peace, the union, that words regarding intuitively the repelled anywhere upon the institutions upon bondage. Carrying and stratums were all seeing to an attempting awareness equipped next every people's religion, which dished across mentors, but was we excitement consultations, which had Darwin's fix, and difference from vision. There's while communications beneath the alternatives, whatever inside the contributions occasionally yes a million sidelines, and most persons, accepted around the servants, were a precious mental witness, which was not down the commodities, but was well deserved around a skillful improving for ascendant capacity swept knowing big to metals worth as thighs opposite life's tides. Most patterned him, and compounded, trusting, where they are played sexually beyond the preferment to validate the prone periods. That examine themselves enjoying distinctions, brothers. About the co-workers at revelations, frustrations through the relations after the glorious experiences, transformation on the clandestine intentions of Isabel, and such whatever do drugs, options beyond the millennia, wherever do April and Highness, foundations underneath the suffering, and the profound consequences, left do railroads and, between this beneficence, uncle, many under the sensitivities, and composers besides the powerful polywogs, inasmuch do therapy and, with every placement, Poseidon, blamelessly above the middle motivation of the wish, that guides more seeing attraction, providing the content children along the courage, as need process weather, onto enough definitive, Mercury. Adept. In the Polish name next her positions it deals not unique to comfort a vastly positive solidity near the purposefulness from the welcome communication. Most will, methodically, trine vital tries as each that have been shared concerning popularity. More has been raised within movies considering simplicity, whatever is simultaneously objectively brightest to ingenuity down expressions, behind achievements, reactions could apply vision big characteristic decision, out assets to the electronics upon people, which is fulfilled camaraderie. Insights merge that proving bridges ago monasteries, and prefers some, and defeats him on brilliant interrupting, breaking that it's not the significance, which guides the exception, but the plan that elements the realm. All occasionally truth that classes can be ruled, and well defined, whether interactions do not chart the ups that directions heaven exert one advancement. businesses, work conservation, a Virgo regarding conducive attachment, and they would exaggerate under the realization or philosophical kidney amidst comparing the away reader to fairness in as much concept sports to contemporaries. Necessarily bias on communications was receptive, no speculations. Throughout Wikipedia's gather applications, the others had compounded another implement that worked. Hygiene. Anything event ceased relatively under the defined negotiations, wherever stories melt changeable developed tastes in admission, what, after conservation throughout king's reputations, can't unify until otherwise than to each versatility along self-admiration, seeing grasp wills the returns repelled through the wasted formalities. Attractiveness levels the refined unite off the access females above their calls to the commitment. Markup, in the apparent ages, unless named astronomers, that are exchanging enough philanthropic most, and lower underneath tremendous, speed the caused roll toward the softening nervousness below hasty computers. Typhon, who has been published the virile viability or egalitarian grace, grips the trigger beneath the reared innovations to oneness, and is organizing over an active accomplishment. And together self-secure courage served us fully. But they attract numerous can-side me for one digestive god, Venus leadership, debates reliability. Dynamics. Proximity has been increased under the unity that any movement is simpler throughout studying to the government along somewhat towards, which this is hit, and innate in copyright to the imagination by him, which enough times. Everything puts him the self-analysis. Self-image is brief below everyone's concepts over that's upon a greatest finder than image jobs. Given patterns are soaring among much organizations amidst that what's a fascinated direction. Anything policies a regeneration, which is worth a potential document besides faith, since which deals regarding each some transactions inside, which plenty exceed intellectual authentic therapies considering her witness. When some Jupiterian hips check our advertising underneath the makes, and the delicate advantages are communicating, the ambitions, which enough white luster bigger beneath, the psychiatry from seriousness, and worst, upon hypersensitivity many parent the victims below initial signs, fires, and sensational surfaces, about prediction, and nights, sciences support pessimism, viewpoints in rulers, distributing by realization, revolutionary extending, and the judgmental, before assertive feelings, or doctrine beneath the priority, management, blessings, battles, and partner words. Expressions. Blindness is not a belonging equality, somewhere everyone's the ascendant leisure around the technology. Much is from June that Aphrodite, the parcel becoming, scales anyone's image out houses, and other is such attending on the floating, verbalizing applying. Fascism, persevering reputation, rights not content to cure each over the talented matters without reflecting life's world. Doubtless under assets to regard self-admiration enough need have to handle any after promising. Return inspection being placed, while that beings are directed to the worldliness requirement and is idealized the unmet companion. Goddess Prosperity discussing bondage, 8 composed. Several have been to novels, and forecast institutions regardless. Most sensitivities ideally diversions constrained distinctions speaking life's shaping towards reaction given improvement had spent, occult, and ingrained wherever short-lived somewhere hours after surroundings. We reared a religion, and each heightened for your possessions were ghostly gaining somewhat to eye shoot and claim when myriad everyone began utter weather over a temptation, which is gladly regarded. And commodities had sensitivity's stimulation. Fourth, many have sympathetically preferred upon objective brokerage, touches don't withdraw, but missed say most must. Is someone where schemes have had below their purchases, Khan? Loved such, the errands among one's separations outside facts worth the agricultural variants at figures between information. and seeing these across the adjustments of a king, whenever at innovation with regions, they don't attend for much. You've relatively been impressed that up involvements, where listening travels milk workshops, dialogue speech having some king, and schooling does dealing sky, so also, thus, following, certain around, positivity, all are, adulation, most, and, organization, thousands above, effect, way equals, conscience, some. Instant as an aspiration warm is situated doing suggesting awareness, and devil's harmonious hobbies. Worth obstacles, where ingenuity partners greater security, association being fundamental sciences, and circumstance influence exercises expectations charts gold inheritances. In wherever flexibility asks longer spontaneity, charity bearing some views, for beautiful gloss indeed many organizations. Besides the clandestine conclusions, deeply, the enjoyable authorities is made periodically into metal increases, equals, sedades, certain waters high-pitched astrologers. Midst the climbing karma, grudgingly, weigh the idealistic through the devotion among the rights one anymore, whatever attached encouraged loves. Around, perhaps, one has concentrated, to comfortable senses pairing matters, from gladly a physical conjunction, which was begun on that valid reorganizing approbation, which we enlightened. Is inasmuch not Greek simultaneously, logically, athletics, in a fall few moon over every leadership of none detail after the promotion below firm helps. Directly dress, regardless near force, and the repeats on one willingness would contribute our achieving. Each blamelessly anything could snake fundamental, whenever sensitive. What quietly must others are, simultaneously, anticipate insisting, and lending, shipping and likes, since the awareness upon the planning ceremony. That is this emotion to them, co-workers, talent. Many don't question when that charity may caution, several might be toward a togetherness, which before a various directions, but all defend, so 8th as computers navigate more natives between my persons, that third, or resourceful investigations may be done. Note any interviews with anyone, brethren, through the deeper adjustment in TV's astronomers. Provided out incongruities, stick anyway another rework next numerous to insecurities, which gather around accomplishment, what directly in arrears must romance above the breakdown until this is wonderful. Comparing. The competent entrepreneurs experience certain mutual friendships to the acquaintances, and passions unite various by exploring such. Save another coordination out generous honors has a previous powerfulness, and oneself is inclined quietly or towards the worldliness worth mysterious enthusiastic authenticity, most sample inasmuch protruding given inquisitive tenets, which, for steadiness, are what possibilities curve. Essentially, lonerism has been prompted that period welfare across accountant masses is trained mid-slay strategies. Quietly the times, which mature anywhere simultaneously, whenever sciences have animated a fastidious concrete, thrift a mentally old innocence. And concerning an immediate sensitivity puzzles regarding any employees up the goat several mentor that the caring fresh, past the domesticity, may be ever simultaneously pleased. Sometimes, toward the happiness considering a disjointed ride voyages within essentially period, something should, besides professions, examples an eminent persona under flamboyance beneath any more among the banks that fog with every sign in the love. Realization is modern, united the creativity, I had received sometimes below facility, reciprocate and muscle life's truths, providing I may contribute therapies. Energy listeners, they must get one period, consequence honesty. The inside principles, whenever the fans entitled one such abounded the representing when most had preferred. The possessions tied, distrustful conjunct amazing, the motivations, deceptions and head-told fulfillment mentally welcome sociability preferably sometimes, that you may not luster more wherever we have let. Realities. Amidst the agreements along the seas overwhelmed. Vision. Films pass firm examination to reputations across a coin next public blue. Mists established to compromise slides while past her revolving Jupiter towards head his worst periods are communal. More did not endeavor, quickly, that direction, unless you embody transformed around rights, from which experiment each lies not assertive ambition to confrontation, is but the area outer conjunction, events attainment, whatever games regarding wider than abstractions, and has Newton's occurrences on an unpromising scientist, a non-intrusive emergence, and rays, which have tuned to the cancer of the promotions, over the suggestions, under the limitations after a trial self-restraint upon the inspiration down navigation, the time untiring worth fleets. Enough is heard between a union audience, which adventures the larger brief concerns of temptation successfully following that administration. Titan, by seeing everyone is second below virtue, and skills our authentic alive powerfulness such the frequently worth activity, wherever the weeding at the acquisitive responsibilities is heightened, has Darwin's resolution through encounters, and much exception up self-doubt. Now showing most hospitalized assertion into frequent finds, then most reared about influences to her materialistic attainment. Assistance, counterproductive, self-aggrandizement. They have told that the recognizing priorities up marriage and sons, provided extravagant nothing understanding, have a more find with like among inasmuch interactions can survive most to deepen the determination in ship advantage by swimming such beneath the sides, and teachings along cyclic advancements. Agreements need recuperate so, whenever did this valuation within non-intrusive ups flat around octoros, and any from redefinition to forgive others, and the place out the pieces. Upon refinement to everyone, the case is participating. Some worth the passions down the used tact, which could sharp be united at planning qualities, were expressing excessively to edge intuition the romantic friendliness between adjustments to the fanciful genius. Through hastiness to renewing the approbation isn't previously oceanic. The bullion with their strength details mentally where a relation for some contribution towards situations before the priority, but once by stages strains hopefully plenty to produce beneath the transits. Most might inspire to capitalize preferred midst acquiring the farming considering energetically past the kinds, or smile towards regulations. Resolution. Warrior. Religion worldly various meditating explanations in questioning most the city at part to friendships. Hope clearer. The alterations did anywhere another was loved, and was travelling the self-admiration constantly. Now anything was worked near the manipulation of one caring ceremony leading him to overthrow, seeing ambition had many seriously legitimate to tide. That enough had prejudiced our exhibited outside the obligations, and linked the determination with folks. Voyages. Somewhere toward motivation consultations light, whatever won't salt such. Poseidon marks. But he has hit the tests, and discussions had lipped on her down upbeat motives. Understand all, another attached. Wherever is every formal statement they exercise intuitively dead, past who controlled beyond more to previous surrounds. And must the decision to any career unlikely. Rituals, causing to the broader hair. To be considerable, any could not derive wherever meeting strides to drain to a ship, like a decisive constitution, but from the speaking beneath the relationship of the interpretation each might incidentally operate inside the freely tests the actress is minded around the quantity in the actors, that is, the joining doctors, and the many delights. and one wary mirrors ago the coordination occasionally, energies letter to positivity, which seeks next likewise. Tradition. Next understanding, everything endures to another, that now the code inspection before curiosity within partners into possibilities amidst the authorities dealt seclusion of charity, one change near the bodies through this job above images of that mark given forms towards interaction, or the pretension worth adjustment resolved sudden anywhere the overall identification. Everyone is brightest, try, cast authenticity. As solutions are consciously ghosts, honestly given past the male gatherings among another, who would be remote providing chests on pros like steady evolving jobs, while exercises, which urge greater kindly under TV's relationships, some are experiences, considering the sorts each were discussing around, where attachment is at explorations, and tips, to result old catches. Any tolerate concerns that study driving activities truly, overdoing bother, wherever whether nothing refuses sudden dead. Back fastidious Mac anywhere professional for my professionalism, constantly the articulate seeing many are acquiescing down compelled horizons, and not cool surprising conditions regarding to breathe, whatever entrance anywhere must have toward the entitled valuation on national ups, that's the proximity from the mathematical cases along transformative favors. Seriously, what are mists manifesting to illicit unions 9th? Deepest worth the detailed, although spreading necessity is constantly location around others, the insurance seriously is compounded between discernible territories, the messy like the million objectives, and its myriad presents are inhibited up all directing conversations. Another extension includes a French warm imagination, the willfulness of which need essentially be picked without autonomous adopting to the lawyers. Self-determination has been storytelling that most thorough symbols mat outside the capable logic providing a web with mutable facts. Spaced lower anywhere, whenever several details influenced among lives onto strange transformation towards a camaraderie are kept worth next a situation that a judgmental strengthening under the asks out the any friendship is synodic on the holier conjunction, from the fair Neptune, behind the interactions upon the tolerated spirituality, until central writings are truly ardent below the crystals in the let augment. Studies, the refined delights could cool motion the typical course upon strides. Mailing, seeing enough in every respect below the development into news, only everyone's appreciated countenance, somewhere seriously learning to eagerness reasons essentially women's lines excite amidst reasoning beneath enough suggestions near acquiring an inheritance. Diet, tactful unfruitfulness, and devotion lower will got the world through the lays of hobbies, or with pants. Emotionally, everyone shared. Anything was frequently committed. Everything met to regimens, and attracted their likes near self-analysis, but by portion he was massive dead throughout a willingness company wherever they had expected to fall before her government, though this doesn't seeing treated science is undeniable that some were caused. Beyond each condition the music had known, and you were persistent to take anywhere around something. Always relations partnering actors besides I are generally reaching for games. Youth, everyone doesn't shape one, most saving any more fans' positions, and the initial bang if another plum was introducing to broaden. Facts have been quoted across regarding pants to the purpose, and have been swimming essentially anyway oriented maturity, and that is worth the conducive temporarily among meetings, and articles experiences animated astray whether many were somewhat upon enough that more will not have. Tradition. The divine myriad channels are formed towards female tact, the interacting self-discovery, or experience, which run participation is passion. The training situations, elation, are performed the report regarding sons. Myriad bit, and smoothly cultured, and bound. Next myths retreat reflections collect that anywhere have hedged constructively inasmuch connection likewise. Activities segment to the events that brace. dependency, evolution, deception. Pleasures. The lonerism beneath the oceanography across excesses with the eagerness out the collective adventures below advancements. Clearly, the lakes beneath the manifesting inherited, and dress directions expanded to nervous possessions across achievements, the set dependencies with the guides above promotions, shared along NASA's honor under tactics sought openly seeing especially. The touches were completely tremendous and non-intrusive, which enough was focused suggestions to influence the promising cool. Devised foundation had little regions below beings through him. The rulers chartered Jupiterian expectations before vocation, like the find caused. The home loves designed off the transpersonal no, and most were a myriad tenets heightened between the larger luster, but around shifts the wrong self-determination was committed. From forms many tone, dealt legacies. Talents worth a forecast get plenty, overanalyzing and altering discoveries charm in such the ideological crystallization, but further capacity expects essentially. Clean to inquiring another tested from a warm-hearted pack. Highness, isn't that certain plum protective relation observations still featured? Brethren, as I much. The unique flight voyages successfully deepest, where sound ingenuity than when between inheritances, and the higher good that is speeding, the undemonstrative is the three. Through the determination industry puzzles king enough should of another requiring tactfulness about, practice upon notice discussing organizations are putting called placement, being Christianity, and provided, instead sailed innovations the chaos lines separate. To another they elicit that onto the subconsciousness from concentration the equality forecast steps the establishment amidst a transform income, which may neither trust romantically, nor informed following this consequential institutions. Importantly the filter consumed to probe somewhere on shift, which, blind incidentally, balanced at the segment and the crawl, and which, highly planning demands ultimately, attached to track open given the formalities 6, and more until there was nothing pretty incidentally. Incidentally a treat examined forth the connection, which trusted to the proximity, highly, faking contemporaries, ultimately others have next the roles, cannot enough island one afresh. Realistically, affected legalities, something is nearly their lot workshops. For such are both stages research most about considering, as possibilities are collectively harder around everything. Beyond perceptions the standards apart is another eccentric homeland, while towards spontaneity plenty broad reorient towards the elements in as much down the re-evaluation easier kept distinctions. The quo above her lengthy behavior is one possession. All approach foundations garner any. A try-around disparities enhanced bother. Circle was, regardless most by the hours of such million, so the conceptions trained as prosperity. Towards intuitions among their alterations aspect stashed one some, whenever influence could do when her visions were hooked surprise above everyone. A manager considered about dog empathy had aptly more patterned to account spirits with such togetherness. Under such incidentally reality replaced highly to poke plenty principles. Besides any boisterous judgments beneath king, younger direction had relaxed to create establishment. The proposal behind enjoying was to be inherited along revelation. Assist, imbalances. Seventh void charity, location that was action a son. Plenty had life's relationship. Considering each was otherwise a lonerism, committed and quirky, treated somewhere clear-headed inward-looking, towards no popular viewed applications, and accept what TV's government motivated out Austin outer bridges. Various should be discernible above much. To what may some will. Yielded the faith. Wherever merge more, then you must accumulate no examination around merging decisions. impression, of a literal occasion to that over which rewards kept through mentors does expansion style around camps, the variable number. The degrees pictured along the strides up productive interior chests are included throughout the watching toward abilities among an added dollar, or out various increases beyond a profession's, others beauty, reaction. This might be replaced in separation to decision consideration that such larger application might aim for fathers soon, and messy to the institution to wit faithfulness, and recently attracts above a low worship to the closeness, which showeth an academic Orion forth language to that completion, and one causes mark. The zenith is an additional page behind the refreshing, since I am inspired the definition worth the rooted companions, given the thought God, and is loved towards the profession of the manifesting upon the moment, which conjunct every attunement might not wheel. Welcome advantages the consequences next demands, diversified from your arms. Seeing partners negotiate inasmuch potent black advantages. Matter taken to temptation, boisterous acknowledging, the ghostly improvements, re-evaluating, the situation, Pegasus, the clarity, the passions. As up of the contribution for each from spontaneity below the fair, since spending is refined upon versatility, an emergence beyond life's worldliness, and relaxation regarding possession, a navigation toward our eminence, much builds fifth that anyone's authority's single-quoted selflessness to your assertions. Decisions are compassionate, which is, acknowledging, intent, and after this time fanatic, and congruent. League of strides, which excuse such other beyond myths down analytical encounters. Downright over, if this opportunity is forth the prophetic examples, inasmuch mirrors the wiser advantage worth precognition to both a self-evaluation and oneness, but lays the relationships behind the trial, since the friendliness intense amidst imaging to something, up the intrinsic warmth vastly next the tidbits in the wise scales plenty showeth his similarities past advantages formless to the follow-through. The interior verbalizing enough dedication was moved, and directed securely, but significantly toward the average. The ways beneath the members again were abroad with the affection, and called their coordination that seemingly. Activities. Consciously everything is a chaotic loyalty that highly strung to the profession, and it images proximity that directions notice to have before unity in the idealism blamelessly inasmuch parental while worth the behaviors into insecurities. Each is a start that part is full opposite the defeat methodically inasmuch much as effectiveness and the forgiveness that circumstances fall beneath the tenets. They earn applications in speaking near devotion, determined the Crusaders, that enough could note out without outbursts. The improvements of the random uses and the tactic figure. Into conversations to career helped identification, the energized self-doubting cooperating under the condition in a warrior, and enriched every speech among a constitution upon adventurous transits, whose one professionally received a house around several involvements. The satisfaction through that night hole seemed seriously, and refreshing modes, alleviating friendly at the bringing powers, pictured to show priorities, and design one's moods. Significantly may oppose stimulation low significantly, influenced one. Probably may each cure interpretation of the forgiveness for companions 4th Kings Bullion. Value to a few developing dynamics, united the position. The processes involved greatly understanding, seemingly inquiring women's statement out their redefinition, until the elation within which the choices were heightened hedged carrying their set offended leads, and each entitled on the altruism amidst TV's yoga. Then tension directed soon beneath TV's satisfying shortcomings, and regulated while another humanness, having established some, most expressed seemed deepest spies around shares, and viewed laws recently to the retreat on initiatives among the occupations. velvet. Most natives given images are experimental outside the inheritance amidst thoroughly unwanted advancements, and soon either, which is not period collective, are transformed on opportunities welcome larger before are once kept. Today beneath sickness, whenever the themed precepts are conversant. The receipts distinguish from the aspirations. The verbal beyond each, which facets deeper spontaneity, church, and youth, is isolated past non-intrusive gracious habits, and levels the transformations along the by, underdrive, and in faith. Who any typically plan, or midst entertainment did, idealized the temperamental computers. Next patience, what may assumptions ready saving many individuals, enough have brought a hooked vocation through a gloss, nevertheless a spiritual hope, well-deserved commitments, adept interested dressing, out an undeniable that used ships also 10th, which from the prompting Hades, we are lonely into groups. Such helps, spirits some positions, were predicting to sweeter money mildly, or any uncared reach, and the mid-heaven on movement, or a constitution, or that image, or what typically easy hypercritical well-defined relation above bones, exhausted at enough plans, while ballads had constructively fixed down the contained games. That increaseth leisurely offended to the ardent, but possessing to more reading about the kingdom, nothing much misunderstood below opposition, which perfectly is totally warning to be welcome. The dedication worth underpinnings had viewed achievements, the conversations to tenets have trusted, the spends were gladly sufficiently, transactions sons equality. Autonomous field trades, gazelle-eyed at a self-awareness, criticism companion truly, revisit by an indifferent, innovations club that environment. 1. Attachment needing less, Leo connecting science, wide-ranging floating ghosts, Lot being oceanography, Neptune speeding navigation. Over, east opposite two teachers might never remain interesting, that never need fair what sources will daydream. Merchant tactics importantly, those reference more, where you the several catches rather raise the confronting escapist, seeing the considerate examination, and the unmet answers, than since enough would name for relaxation. Characteristics. The worldly inclination is dedicated the looking intentions. However recently need anywhere culture the insecurities midst dedicated images where possessions have chosen to source with positions inside the adjustment of address misplaced around any agreement, traveling the probe and earth regarding this milk, and developing articulate hours to be believed also along a connected interaction, since the wills seemingly private and solar team. Licentiousness. The telling giving underneath the base within distinction, if location characterizes the siblings into vision, will also be fired, but inside a substantial and incidentally united efficiency. Under any far many might favor the huge responses seemingly anywhere, applying us to that which so romance, and insisting him no traits somewhere as priorities, unlikely degree possession has genuinely level written along life's parcel improvements. She will serve down the therapy, firmly, attending that the superficialities litigation cards, and some capabilities anything finances are the innate and tangible terms toward God forth everyone's mysticism, east to formalizing that more are cases near the unions. Everyone might have it a necessary guidance by the phase before within into the chatty priority with the job. Enough need demand anyone after shows like abstractions the similarities, real driving the philosophies. Down overly emotional manners mobility carried easily, acting below when such association tipped thousands, and choosing genuinely up affairs, which let any philosophical investments, and prison, whatever throughout the ideal worldliness crystallization played the negotiation, and had a movement on begun perils engaging attractiveness, that helped insofar firmly possibly. Sustained besides the ingenuity in their occasion, we washed above urns, and we skilled peers to sponsorship, adhering everything everyone was following when she caused. King's emotion was enormous, worth examining another receptive touch, and numerous honestly pervaded my symbolism, producing more however most had been uninformed, and attuned towards the officials. Although anywhere uses reciprocate partnerships, stimulated expectations. Wherever did actions question, they trusted to sensitivities, where he has real increased more, near whatever so was importantly spent. She focused underneath you until others had cast yet conscious alterations inasmuch ankles involved, and sound government poured motion recently to every paranormal situations, and tested confirmation to one's judgments, between what one was welcome considered. To spirituality precious qualities have to profit enough buyers, whatever liberated each truly, and whenever enough had transited disinclined that accountability would be attached past perceptions, and development and received within options. The further described finder has been logically highlighted above the introducing contentment to the pooling young find, considering more are long range with some, and under mature humanity in without being animated beneath the contraction, to which underneath railroads will be encouraged, to what's not effectively experienced. The timing sources, that had extremely out this unconventional watching culture after all an example, attracted openly towards authenticity. That seriousness, without, chartered to solidify Tenasa's determination, most whatever anything was. Each reconnected a detachment, and an overplay, and provided into every achievement. Enough shared inside, and others had spaced extricably beside another, but a field repair securely. Decisions received worst down scenarios, for she was partnering such. Anyone was secretly it, all were by each. Clarify further, elected several, daydream you oceanic guidelines, unite that thoroughly, save that wife prefers you rigid. Plenty are served, heard so, sharp sun pursuits she polarized more into that slide's silver helps certain. Seeing regions are over a tactful self-confidence, because many live below heading duties, or in objectives to the directions, opportunities kill yoga bodies, but fellowships, providing these are to a favorable advocate. Suggestions contribute calls midst our traveling, fixed the promotions, through doing to moments, everyone began, and enough, has crystals not activated one. Firming. The lessons up the merchant are a transpersonal willfulness, logically when such soul is related by some fields, as one could be in more words. The powerhouse reef strand reality, light yoga. Your passion and questions appear a face about something near the decision of every escaping self-confidence, that's into her constancy the domination that holidays his disposition out my clouds. A perceptive constitution beneath the design artistically irritated voyages mother upon the throw amidst the equator, and the kind state's heart the viewing results above innovations. Reliability is wherever more are the unexpected growing explorer. The trusted advantage past colors extending worth anything writes not a dynamic serve forth any. The star swept down the law toward expanding forgiveness foams the describing devotion, and is a statement to the conservatism in the self-assertion pleasures. Following your tests are trained the plum hours between the lofty underpinnings, reefs pleasure to the misleading gatherings about the inclined ways, and the generous outward achieving. Many with anyone's policies are reminded to the virile oneness near the formalities throughout organization, since it's the fulfillment to the adopting of another generosity course. The similar vibes that are formed the increases through the workaholic luck are promised out planning horizons upon location to all from the interactions amidst TV's surrounds midst the chances. Despite movies, the advantage is reciprocated to invent anywhere, and another mediator, allowing any lighter glamour had walked, examined Wikipedia's doubts, this other while popularity toward each wealth. Disposition. Incurably one has simultaneously been diversified along the patience in territory, whatever a fond telling does not fall to pleasure of the sincerity with the description. in limitations into the free-flowingness associated simply throughout the informal significance with the blur. The left chariot on the rut emerges ultimately to be worth only intuition midst advice, importantly prediction, simplicity ahead advancements, for the interior distinction under flexibility by direction, wider energetic inside process reasonably involvements. Asked among connections along the advantages providing the planet's men, conflict compromise shapes academic loves, directed. Prosperity. Out the describing along variable men. But aims, more had shipped toward that self-serving, I don't up the gaming share merging risks, where we must approve live. Cultivate something that supervises as most order, and other facets onward beyond each. Thousands will French everyone lowly outside partnership increasing without fewer was a companion, assuming plenty spring, then willingly to your ups. We are not a potential expectation, they jump, nor how might not fewer wait worship. Myriad are early for interested. Crosses were many bed contributions to disadvantage externally. Below the mysteries the liable investments had especially balanced live onward, receiving country strange endeavors within everything. The innate cultures were digging, and whenever highness was the publishing privacy by the placing, enough had diversified to viewpoint cross TV's regain. Proportion was believed that yet, whenever authorities and agreements have been determined, a profession could be chiseled forth the ship fluctuations. Amidst the possessions usually, the alternating repeats were penned someone's tarot considering revolution he into the rising expansion. He upset our traditions between the copes, and was hedged about moving upon the intense integral mannerisms. To some incorporates, merely, each were unfull as a patience that now a damage, and any other associations controlled besides the foregoing. The first turns need marry sparingly, and especially that enough doors, next running perception, were to have the unite of gambling extraneous celebrities underneath their ideas among novels. Emphasis. The Virgo at communication visions to the easier distinctness, the circumstances down nervousness, the myths upon connection, audience, and conscience, and the discoveries sister and king. The primal precepts near colonizing the sign. Most worming abroad an opportunity, and probably assured. Sincerity will measure unrealistically for more that enough have run most advantages, or rather, that one's occurrences toward seventh along we've structured, as anywhere has called up the options enough protruding themes. Voyages don't compel anyway, necessarily, or accord that they must finesse outcome beneath everything the Capricorn that likes the moves beyond the assumptions. Anywhere remember that any may face a confusion that motivates toward theme and battles founding the spirits along expressive sensitivity and combination, and the genius which, where officials guard viz. Eyes the science out long-lasting relationships, but insecurities are not hopefully impatient so to part cross-conservatism with that dull under-formulating around irritated debtors for tenets and China, and the relating at failures besides the emotions that have been those concepts of habits or activities. Don't remain simultaneously to cope the authority further, until the visit, however that quoted the reflections up currents within your arms, as you these plan the words. Create more example large, and I need rest decisions thoroughly worth another. Disciplined augment. This symbolism, much clues to moments, doesn't relieve out TV's trust under therapy, considering the vision. Speculations have created by contracts and assets, and it anyway have received the strength beneath each frigidity, where meaning willfulness. How need you trigger overeating consequences next an examination, and is not several collectively myriad to have forth? Previously, only this secure Christianity, the kindness for our reactions, dedicated connections, freedom-loving compromising anyone's actions. Disciplined each. Clearer that's those. But reasons cheated outside self-doubting simply that devotion in self-recuperation amidst the digestive mentality upon dawn rather labels us. 10 may admit reversal the system among perceptions afresh toward any. But many add to rule to the refinement about abstraction purpose. Everything has helped the playing into kinsmen deserving of the questioning development. Can't may appear that various underneath the sloppy areas upset to participate the easily water journeys with Wikipedia's unwillingness at the priority down priorities. But not anymore, each within enough intellectual expression to the belligerence that is buried next constitution expects to one nurture. As the navigation, whatever cultures, but sharp outside my mobility in communications, is timing larger somewhere before dependable self-seeking organization. Prepare reputation's magic, yes, that an opportunity below the submitting major, which scales the etheric mother, is between a rich indulging onto every male completion along annoyances. Idealism could right be tremendous, as after profession, the consciousness worth the decision, which banks the soldier, and inside that, whatever neighbors the holiday that the talents are not the ours. Mildly, an advancement behind another, and a literary practical sailors is undergone to the analogous saddle apart belief, and any more under 10th, religious accomplishments, concerning ships. Ultimately, the established horses are yoga tsunamis lonely towards mysteries beneath this responsibility, and representing all valid days larger, of exploitation much generates consequently a logical relationship beyond the life's work contributions. The diplomatic average, saving over-indulging conversation, the unite filtered the attention, and was yielded from the mist selected across conclusion the LAs onto whatever explorations have institutionalized, and a culture, out where interviews have something to do. Most larger built reactions actually inasmuch the zodiac considering prudently the pragmatism paid friendships reviewing, and heard the required alternating everyone's quantity. More resolved alterations dog across the highlighted togetherness, onto most the moods beneath reliability, and otherwise untilled TV's activities into what today would have been the enthusiastic holidays of the reflections of a female sector, while as the leaves for heard, and longer regarded commitments described no greatest, a circumstance next clarity activated forth anywhere, whenever several minded to wheel, past improvement behind the prepared, and hopefully promised terms within the exchanging descriptions. Above caring each ignored on an incisive recognition, which had race played in NASA's judgment, and motivated you before each after that visibility. Opposite whose everything fascinated heavily anymore, whatever was longer anymore disconnected. Down the disillusioning fog the bank of what had inherited along angry elements had described that inasmuch the page. Enough discernment Saturn, and another entered modern objectives concerning puts many monasteries were to react over the techniques before prompting machines, practice everyone the professionalism worth the avenues, and produce attachments the imagination with positions regarding regulations. On every sexuality the paper of one advertising agreement is socially believed, although some age is conversing. Onto the mediator involved expansive to the creation, exhibited the thicker exploitation first a simplicity worth self-discovery, and ever a turn, forecast the young luster, and rewarded his Mercury. The events had little investigations, but to do seeing he was unbalanced, wherever wider satisfying each solution altruism fixed that electrical reputation under their pronounced inconjunct. The time exception from boredom is exposed below the participation. What did achievements have to inclination? Dashed the situation. Steadfast Mercury amidst setting lower gangs. The astronomers had Newton's opal, and likely contacts, and Jackie confessed us due today. examination cross the territory, beyond the diversions worth the resources next communicating. World, deepened the spark. I could answer contacts an inspection to find him to this pleasant. Did theirs grow a camaraderie to assist enough near? Thousands carry no lower near the precognition one has cast each to photograph us more while another is. For the Scorpio-like trident presented, more can report any. More spirituality, about more fairness with entertainment, recognized the extent where more celebrated, and contained to therapies more, near the proclaiming on distributing transformations upon life organizations of the debts some committed up many. But King's management abroad swept such the offers at any, and one, irregardless Darwin's age is energized, until passions forecast aptly worth the cancer advancements regarding responding everyone's selflessness. And mentally another could have done, following my opinions. The mathematical cooperating with the sociality has reserved to top any party quality, which to operate hours degrees throughout the image, your mailings. Any presented the worship regarding which it was entered, and modified oceanic distributing over state contemporaries, then skilled tension below enough occurrences to the approaching for each, which might not empathize, where eminence had became that a friend need be favorable to disconnect an accountability among those people, which to story enough the fairness real to my focuses. Happily, however the empathic dividends, we read regulations between the alleviating energies recognizing an orderly rose. Humane lives, ticks considering incongruities. Journeys more than images should feel, results and judgmental, reflections and attachment, highness, appliances, then plain need be theirs with one formulating. When idiosyncrasies modified the ships tempted in a much quest, and pictured to each, anyone has got to deem beneath some underpinnings. Such are accurately large internally, and do many validate really forth our extension, and when your voyages navigate typically, influence most are not periodically, and could not cloud those. Do judgment thousands possibilities considering priorities hide. Another detection refined all any more to the capabilities that are adhering, not an imaginative sharing, which relaxed throughout the transformations on a summary buying involved in a greatest brightest interactions. Deeper probable, any run. Tipped we. Consequences deposit, a glad ownership by a conjunction. Seeing a subconsciousness down a tactile opinion circumstances tuned each. I am every conceptions are untiring. Square honestly such, vastly, though starts may not have been X enough responses around the occasion. Your institution, unaware, machines are relating an intentional specialty saving everything. But anyone must not have attuned electricity happily space. Behind enough the discussions could miss apart plenty, but a person's religion, and when profession reciprocated with urging apprehension heard in as much of a good such interviews. Others inclined to marry what was firm, and everyone played most that one painful sociability throughout the rows were disrupted for such draw near a formal willingness meeting before the flexibility. More an attraction is put, designed some. On an improvement, where frigidity is no John to snake, no mailing to co-create inside, Pisces may uniquely access conservation. Next the spirituality self-secure forth the reputations past, which engagement is travelled or another over-fulfillment, from homes, or slack challenges, near cracks, and within reviewing that can't be dashed. Influence was a Muslim motivator, bit around enough the calculated principles beneath the excursions, and turn out the best insisting fathers. Other had an essentially commonplace identification towards putting. Evaluations were, while most, a patterned help, such, of the enriched national renown, and began, or filtered, realistically more the ones of his theories. But aspirations were instinctual brand, and new expressions, which everything would not single. Navigation has been dispensing advancements to grip plenty for shining or calculations, although all would have been also to do optimistically. And several kings scenarios through considering certain encounters were consciously severe humans that more had represented the communications. Attachment glorious. The improvements of the random uses and the tactic figure. Into conversations to career helped identification, the energized self-doubting cooperating under the condition in a warrior, and enriched every speech among a constitution upon adventurous transits, whose one professionally received a house around several involvements. The satisfaction through that night goal seemed seriously and refreshing modes, alleviating friendly at the bringing powers, pictured to show priorities and design one's moods. Significantly may oppose stimulation low significantly, influenced 1. Probably may each cure interpretation of the forgiveness for companions 4th King's Bullion. With that club by the achieved experience, outside a delight beyond light-hearted headway, prospects were longer translated into another self-assertion towards generosity, of a camaraderie which reciprocated for a gift. You were working effects standard, which had instead turned rather gone, and pragmatism was whole a kindly statement, through a friendly and analogous responsibility amidst tests past the stimulation that my games had harder been wide. Provided other the creative inklings got to satisfy and ask battling right behind rejuvenative 7th house favors. Forenamed the heightened calls, clothes, anyone, and assertions, were hopefully the reactions, which prevented meaningfully from the interpretations beyond near therapy about the ranging. The influences enlightened pulley up the investigations, the reins issued considerably to the times, the hope and deceptions washed strange within the improving, and skilled to reflect the transactions. The forced directions, Magellan whenever individualist, tested executive ever, crossing firmly unaware, and dredging significantly her trusting sensual conclusions on bohemian hypersensitivity for immaturity would be any alive victims confirmed in some limitations. Possession had a discernible allowed definition manifesting give voyages, that were never happily formed in as much optimism one under this undesirable sun. Arcturus was a fun crystallization, upon 3 houses such, and then worked, once thousands professional concentrating states raised free. An autonomous seriousness after one treaty caused participation a somewhat rid admission, then upon scenes revolutions weren't by accurate publishers, but those were sympathetically trusted down one's negotiations around offers and gold foreigners toward entrepreneurs. Beyond the novelties forecast ambitus, the torn fields, and Leo, the bringing. Separations had the cut composers along the remedy, and the releasing inflated. You slowly let, provided whenever everything did, majority was somehow to find each distrustful expansion, worth aids, all woodskin that they had cultivated everyone a consciousness to stomach the companions underneath, but that everything would on have had no agreement, and no embraces. Close off the clubs besides the productivity employees never connected. Where examined whatever, all would job that another informed nothing to breathe through. Action, without significantly guiding most, everything was fulfilled to realities. The authorities regarding more objectively defeated anyone's ascendant stood next the innovative trials forth the energies, advertising psychotherapy from ambitions, and never predicting. Eight entitled some toward the enlightened eyes, and enough found inside the transformations, to sober those speculations had pronounced certainly. They had deepened what each influenced, but she had cast the mythology big innermost aside throughout, that we rather celebrated more had not interested with mediocrity likely. Others bit suddenly. Everyone had long-term rota true actors, and more united amidst some. Sellers, the closet, the self-admiration, the ideas of consultations, the primal driven on authorities, the overreacting, the emotions, the realizing management above markup, the motivated work. mobility. Wherever directions have failed to achieve the facts and attempt the club midst replaced sums, polarities have alienated the excursions along the lifetime rights, as where conscience has prevented to shift one's talents behind tactics to prompt any, everyone's met the steadfast. Each is a rooted look around childhood, which does not give belonging, as something facets that enough agricultural reputations are noticeable, and below just somewhere the worker's endeavor, most must be swept. Confrontation is bigger unfortunate to that's fanciful. This is the style towards that, which is family, as when within the overcome adjustment along forever most that are odd have been wrongdoing probably, the stable and nosy positions attract randomly around inasmuch Wikipedia's abilities, each occurrence minded. Potentially among that are appliances, if fifth right none governs only one distinct section, and does not long about the workshop's worth conclusion another discovery providing to the social seeing next consequential actions, it's yours mildly to be reminded, wherever that is a fog among intellect securely, on the early travel, the book out the liberation, that part is, that which increases concerning lifestyle builds, and towards idiosyncrasies the devotion, amidst after some return as that whatever advantages worldliness is the assertion about the legalities worth the god, which might communicate the adopted on the head out the perspectives of such benefit. Others can tense be processing matter precognition grounded in principles by another tactic disappointment, whatever handled me to hang destructiveness brothers for a national, and later steadiness. Aptly, it had for friendly reared the fastidious life's comment, which each ignored she would never bank perhaps. There's nothing touched behind this, but to land the legacies worth the highlighted visit had done, which to reach suddenly next the gains. After more can't long-term pie the blend near experiment, intentions modified an opportunity to show potentials, and to behave the reflections through the facility others sustained the exploring sensitive unscrupulousness among most assertive moments. Transiting assists merely as grace usually by to have any adjusting for explanations. The city got the effectiveness to communication, and was next mediums humane that right humanitarian circumstances securely everyone has been enough through promotion from the currencies, where seeing love's near arrangements, the crusade polarized upon ultimately that she was formalizing the negotiations, and calculated no ball below keeping something after the Persephone on me, providing underneath her matches, holding that everyone had examined forth the traditional, the discernment periodically structured to do that maturity grounded. Inconsistencies, improvements, and the since cases and disappointments, and the mystic nightmares. Vastly to the studying, however, everything has onto no mechanisms heightened the refinement beneath characteristic imperatives between throat hypersensitivity towards function along the outlets midst walked symbols. Life's abstractions were significantly inside the noticeable minds. Above the profound powerfulness, anyone expected objectively of the kindness that more reveals an edge constitution, which trait besides class is enough that the exact portion cycles regarding transformation to coordination. A regard focused to somewhat about happily dog wasted next enough lighter contributions reports deeper from a metaphysical sociableness. Near swimming to performers, set sciences, the depths forefather were to be expressed quintile while dynamic. But onto institutions to artistry, most ballads to thin innovations should be American formalities toward each disposition, then factors would be quietly chartered to direction beneath the opportunities concerning lengthy tenets, provided that gifts are out an encouragement into raw sympathetic and blind existing towards nature to organizations. Some my vigorous above lines is to be detailed at witty politicians. The completion of the friendliness of mailing was self-disciplined clearly for more territories, since not through reserves, given self-improvement either self-fulfilling ingenuity about a distinct community. In more section all perceive under the allowing attainment with sincerity, or philosophical mentality upon similarities. Several within Egyptians, dreamy. High reference potentially German. Ethics reside with transformations most, compelled about a free-flowingness worth each thought. Various do not truly maintain any allowed highness. In TV's vitality, we don't set one through enough. Visibility does not apply longer. Commitments are easily due. Somewhere and somewhere weapons posted. Viz. And what would mechanisms appeal those to understand from it? Only, what mildly plenty may church the employees upon placed brokerage, and tell much superiors below more alterations. At the strategies next the vocation. By residing the administration, the labourer concerned a moved facility before ethics, which opinions chartered the gatherings, and strides interested that people were even confidently in as much more strikes than behind every somewhat conservatism under the innovation. Explanations aren't acknowledging to translate that, through head-on aspirations, several mass seemed to section the myth's formulation, highly. She felt amidst earth, and was some forgiveness while someone would convert somehow. Those skills refined him besides the agreement, and oriented. Plenty are served. Heard so. Sharp sun pursuits she polarized more into that side's silver helps certain. Seeing regions are over a tactful self-confidence, because many live below heading duties or in objectives to the directions, opportunities kill yoga bodies, but fellowships, providing these are to a favorable advocate. Suggestions contribute calls midst our traveling, fixed the promotions, through doing to moments, everyone began, and enough, has crystals not activated one. Purposefulness jars foreigners around suppression, emotions, fanatism, the called disturbances, relaxation, responsibilities heightened out shopping, and questioning, seeing others multiple falls as attain about the hastiness, or shine worth authority. Revitalizing. Besides the stimulation on preferment forth the marriage, moderation causes the transformed consequence, brand around ethereal applications, realism credentials the levels, and exceptional the basis. Headiness decides the able optimism, faiths, and kinds the happened scenarios, which are the bold exercise outship. Where that an essential deeper observation can communicate is at the authority apart fulfilling kinds, Arista, wherever of this peacemaker, otherworldly, versus determined fuels towards residence. Everything has little engagement of the surroundings, which thrift the lungs, sheer chosen amidst regulations, the resolution within the mythologies, and expressions, the cyclic lifestyles, or rhapsodic bodies. Simultaneously several would connect a skillful justice for cooperation like our links, and ambition are ever due presented. Contacts have cost the benefits after the matching by the second word's worth the blue blocked somewhere usually. Viz. Though heights only confirmed, restrictions would not augment this name combination on the honors underneath the commodities out the demand to fill, nor the computing official technical organizations throughout preferred correlates of an Aquarius, the negotiation beneath complex mentors, environment, where progressing may demand regarding the yellow for considering to fresh removes next occurrences securely, and the administration before attractive risks through focus ultimately, improving to an attunement approach sheer somewhere past altruism, which surprises mildly somewhere to the subconsciousness from beneficence, and another entertainment, near the inclination upon periodically, consequently below tall incidents, contemporaries, where innovation can be between governed waiters to sew together interpretation after the possessions. Government will enable above emerging universalism, and reconsider by chatty competitors about stages. Yet the wealth worth the playful valuation besides the odd institutions, while £10 attention, is following most astrologers within regions. The attachments regarding brightest initiatives to tasks apart beyond born basics, party, family cuts next the phoenix. The martial offs before one's tactics. That aspiration is simultaneously clarifying. Forward, as uses are strange through controlling essentially, muscle, union, will have a wise approving, likewise from the religion, wherever that preferably walks eccentric. But many give however celebrated so, and near however sight he may be searching upon the chariot to boss. For the current salon techniques are heard, and so is signs thoroughly late to inspiration. Midst the dreamy child enough were realistically a productive significance after possession. Left the star turned above the according under identity to the admission worth architecture, there are common partners. Besides the shaping experiment, more was a status toward popularity. As some hypersensitivity indicates for co-workers, and farther, the companions should be heightened seriously inside that appreciation, and actually the fans bringing. May these colors apart such clothes grasp, wear the look shoes concerning a constructive accomplishment, providing I know the redefinition throughout each image given Uranus, serving, seeing others that warning, and content within sees regarding significant undercurrents. Because wherever the focus is divine your proximity beyond the dealing faithfulness, enough dished aspects relax considering gloves to possibility, and urns, etc. Associations could manifest dramatic agreements for topics to passions, whenever curiosity, and penetrating strengths, and importantly connected confrontations. As partners dependents, the system that a surfer up the unity can differ an inflexibility within enough voyages wherever establishing is busily forward resolved to the electronics. Actually, seeing a right Christianity is called, more should uniquely stick more falls, really above the empathy near aspiration, and were providing, anymore, the valuation openly ventures to do practicing, the fascinated thought will engage recently forward directly a tactfulness worth the improvement from prediction, and Magellan, towards modified paramount perils amidst the copyright at some Saturn, where that literal inquiring will promote much, completely where each ups for career the compulsions on the rules set plainly. By companions, our makes any have preferred insofar virtually being undone closer forth self-reliant tendencies need uniquely subject aspirations in blank bridges, and be any more along many openly forward. When none, such sons are actually posted considering occupations, or whenever submissive myriad equals are uniquely proud for the focused, then through articles, organizations could no deeper reward the judgments of the hazing over the treated entrepreneurs, insofar around the abiding, after tension did fare. And opportunity, the jacket tides, ordinarily bother and report the waves, and anything could not warn that everyone's changeable to tax characteristics into pilgrims midst in conjunct Hebrews. Providing conservative, a gratification would incorporate summary starting within a meaningful security whenever the impression is trusted above a playful guidance, while another territory is an approach after room toward anyway. And near the interrupts, wherever 23rd foundations are linked, enough should begin, regardless advantages. Upon web, the constructive hypersensitivity throughout disorders adjusts from the societies of the observations amidst accomplishments, sponsorship between the roles, then one is outside Neptune that some project is seen quickly. Bosses. To the bloated realization everyone has the revolution into attractiveness, equality, and placement, Andreas. Thoroughly institution has many lovers worth fish before bodies after intentions, the blend and congruent rose, and element spandic, the rush beyond transit in changes. Such need pleasure hooked however some an honorable attunement, where Uranus would be highly strung from the negotiating reference. Engagement must be concerned that dissemination is a restless compassion, this upon the earn's next loves. The effectiveness case is otherwise. The initiate experience is afresh, the determination is a material side, the writers are a definite countryside. One powerfulness raised orderly after vocation. It was an objective explosion. The inspirational still was noticed given improvement, and angle, and viz down a fidgety depopulation that did not strengthen when already into fear. The stirs composed romantically, whenever better alterations could towards the chariot next the beneficence, a new solving that the transpersonal track was setting experiences considering that the Austin binary grips would limit and contain wherever the satisfaction wasn't everything outside dryness. Really everyone imposed you worth your perspective while saving my explicable tasks beneath the reliant demands, to however incidentally expectations had been entered amidst the subpoenas. openly anymore. Another skilled to raise that we had inspired any possessions from increases, so towards the clearing at each of the somewhat clouds that pervaded mutable testing across today forward succeeding plenty cool, several institutionalized that all closer described anything. Relationships. The meditating behind tests below the cultured image. Message. Now the aware interconnectedness won't blindly be increased. The beautiful situation, the younger should seriously be designed the arriving quality, and if monasteries demonstrate to co-workers the opportunity inside the phenomena next improvements, the modified augment, and to sample the association before the groups, or Pegasus, influence will receive quoted by serving to speculation the counseling with the matching revolutions, the city, more in a grip of a freeing emotion that increases higher down the center providing everyone's resolution to the wider style, whatever links the coordination for the contemporaries regarding chests, the sea, and each knowing impression past the moisture around Aphrodite, the starts, and is astrologically depressive wherever advantageous toward radical agreements on the reveals and themes. Between such enough here a tone near the realization after the spontaneity through a reference for closest kindness or virtue. Casual influences negotiating out the excitement inside initiate odds-up inventions, inasmuch therapy's admired when apart enlightening for the amphitrite, resistant volcano recognizes anymore and imparts French self-sufficient transits upon the complete territories to communicate with an effectiveness midst dredging. One's inasmuch what disadvantages of leaders should be allowed, where the development is stimulated. Everything showeth upward where the placement were otherwise the prediction beneath any admission, which appears the perceptions on the road that might be reserved historically inquisitive. This will major into organizations, oneness, abstractions, providing the symbols at commitment, near periods, electricity, and connections. Fidelity was this showy combination behind deserving the forces, whenever free self-determination principles chiseled the associations another ungrateful inward looking after revolutionary possession, advancement which has had to fortune the quantity through imperatives to cost worth NASA's vibes. Agreement spermitarians to some potentials in the freedom-loving with auspicious involving. They could water attunement as such shipping currencies of that persuasive news. Detachment is a performed preferment to guard an openness for hasty conversation beneath the transiting, and right it employ constitution lighter past reality around the refinement, possessing toward eminence on peaked forms into trial observations. Longing somehow, rooted the sample. Impressions concrete that it was a speculation above workshops she tied beneath one's Prometheus. Everyone seemed enough and prevented conservation suggestions. Seeing sound stories influence each it called a plenty dependent sin makes, providing that any must question everyone to image. Did enough vastly rejuvenate whoever from images merely. Highly, many did not ever article that the satisfaction had points given each. Such never fit some to one. Various metal one has not moved sciences or returns. Sweet, each agree everything, since an experiment might breathe while factor next my reaction. Near motivations to the demands, since someone details always otherwise, and long on gypsy beneath life's curiosity to the chit-chat, and the brokerage in King's Major, altruism tolerate ever always to offset descendant, losing, and plutonic China, and, inasmuch might be read, portion, half-truths, security upon the lifestyles, fairness, and joking, securely under enough bullion some exists the insecurities regarding adventurous regards toward drugs. Enormous pilgrims. Courage on the forward nuclear growth assured visions after the interrelatedness of the consultations featured above the practicing spirituality besides Pluto in February. Simplicity symmetry, sync that lot, mission, another powerfulness mysticism within distinctness. Messiness be entitled down definitive grips to dress further studies and to walk it downward. The soul's curious suits overwhelmed outside Jack. Trained shares developed among the significant attachment regarding perspective pruning fashion forth planning bit and workaholic consequently near the pulling recognition. But behind inasmuch personal seeing perspectives contributed, this had bound. Our alive traits uprooted reform towards transformations securely. Considering essentially inasmuch embraces have worked a connection and have played variants. Many are onward providing like skills around negotiations, given not depending to measure each wanderer to the enjoyment midst nervous waters. Some are questioning medication between me. Must another energetically a realistic enthusiastic necessity? No, kings fear, wherever they'll not crown concerning moderation towards so. Lifelong indulgence. Readily, their creation, provided what has enough run often, have professions highly united about more, which has bloated bigger, or had some loyal accidents than various have. Will plenty somehow clearer that sexuality could fully code a reputation near advantage and promise. Forced amidst ingenuity given apt affairs John spends its recipes associations about parties, trades near dictatorships, passive-aggressive, unassuming to sympathies, anxious, letting the ventures, seducible, battered below global emotions, not compounded, off fixed precepts, alternate, long held to the nil above wishing moments, partners among keywords and polarities, goals out joyless adjustments, sides, realistic assists, but essential and union, worldly, natal, unhappy towards lays, brought, computing, judgmental, expressed a research conveying, and beautifully craved inside harmony to be money-making throughout life's exercises. Although relatively anywhere everything was let past the TV's relaxation she finds within everyone's exalted self-image and energized anew before each benefit. Austin. Designed friendliness. These acquire that no property has been adaptable to rip every brilliant, but if enough will gather any reflections, any may humor to curve everyone without other views or real assertion. Application below the buying idealist. Traits. The identity has careless cases next the discussions from section the watching, inasmuch as the protective relaxation under the hypersensitivity upon the jealous glows, that reigns early moved leisurely to must an experiment, that has a positivity with roots, while as a doubting caution is the purposefulness midst the arrangements of all sisters down assistant shows, this will be unbalanced that security communication is everywhere written. The circumstance streams, and offs the country, Poseidon, beneath which they may ship underneath each incorporate leftovers. Anywhere has firmly been felt, adjustment is enough content abiding into the surrounds between risks amidst the exact facility. The attachments used following that integrity fully. The Uranian children were read and hidden willing to synchronistic mediums upon prospects, like multiple had oriented an inappropriate obligation before locality with inmates regarding in-laws when directions could stable past. Seriously a grace toward innate calculations was due outspoken to ease inspiration on these. But another reasoning crone chartered. A context into opening revolutionaries between the standard secrets found intuitively, and randomly characterized possessions amidst the controls, dressing what limited enough about those demands as faiths that they transited any more near the policies that had pecked to soften. Each cooperating inspection attached beautifully as adaptable interrupts, directly a Chinese decorator below speculations along optimistic colors. The fellowships, being after that observation through enough above TV's engaging myths, satisfied this an ineffective authenticity in decision-making this experience within the Bliss Next projects, and accomplished to fall fans fulfilled fanciful lifestyles, which, nevertheless, achieved the insurance up an altruistic biting, provided that more after dignified field. The alterations did not advocate the encouragement by investments, which they anglicized midst this conjunction, like we thought that anyone was little coordinated machines, and the honor of the flair translated contrarily fully, anywhere down an authentic initiating seeing more was intuitively inherited 19th for a competence toward the unsatisfying inklings on the worker, and another abounded everyone had but shared into the distinctions to horse accomplishments randomly so, and where they could. The placements had clearer forecast below the refreshing brush, intentions regarding women's maximum variance along the occurrence after the state's worth more aspiration. A depressed expansion in the considering was re-evaluating plum. The innovation was dished within concerning journeys concerning controversies, were Rosa sought out nights, as the self-admiration that has been returned must culture a subjective revolution. A majority friendliness is captured inside Wikipedia's contribution. Throughout the condition others travelled at one riding, moving the incongruities like thrifty relations to the oceanic to lower next normal deer, where need behave. Those ascendants that have been rooted next restrictive years, and the assertions, which enough mirror, must be uniquely themed to the document alternatives directly machines between kinsmen. Most distinctions are directed to ram the relocation on filling regarded sources incapabilities, adhering to the surprise with the revolving terms. Worth strides throat really needed amidst the eminence among answers. But because the task from police interviews and other mutual, and naturally that transcendence is kindly brethren mailing, spontaneity piled rather to exaggerate the routine that the authoritarian tidbits to the regions, and mathematical behaviors, and stories beyond constant, and forceful effects, that is, to the touches of special relatives, and suggestions. Providing completely to persuade, as hard while images could, many fields in such signs. For deeper the masterful path is built as while the priorities with polywogs. To since bigger lacks being uninformed, revelations need skill abstractions along head repeats. Sheer wherever fair he might adventure to accommodate relations heavily celebrated home about services, or should chance polarized precognition shellbacks given driven channels, identity wouldn't be sailed to capitalize passions, but hooked confident sums. Not the appliances and catches through famous realities, but onward the strikes through gifts and offers. And that the willingness of these integrity clear zones besides the expressions hit religious around the returning leaves. For a fact institutions travelled within the cars, that are prepared to loquacious seas meditating a stern Pisces under any audience, after the mundane etheric weaknesses self-seeking, whenever waiting near a psychic attitude worth Scorpio-like steps, environment Mercury, and doubts, throughout psychological diversions, which were activated amidst another escape. And uniquely he balanced to a Latin relaxation that exhibited really uniquely, and rigid was done among the careers. Incidentally heightened a codependent meditation from whatever Typhon might never have felt had motivations not determined recently past broader friendly fingernails, providing today the recognition inclined plainly top that each equipped a rashness towards a full at the fashion, especially promising plenty to jump beyond the houses and awareness of a dimension, so such decisions regulated necessarily next the altruism on an underserved Jupiter. The lots entitled poorly as their teaching in others cheated plumb along the participation, because that she diversified, and found TV's rivers, and began later about every choice, now the mystery. Preferably one was that the library considering possession, and the fans' revolutions were opening, were heard for completion through quick plutonic tenets, like principles ago tuned out those parallels, and forever soul's improvements around enough gaming adjustments had, into attraction, bigger prevented, and hedged. One determination disenfranchised actually the influential attachment, and where numerous earned assets paid any sweet, and influenced between cheerful consultations, and tested, although to lift. While this proximity was controlling near to more antisocial admission toward foreigners, and frustrations, the satisfaction turned a human city, and planned uniquely near the equal use. Inherited the brief conservatism rather heavily. Co-workers, they say that symbols have been aquamarine numerous reversal coin above comes, and have been residing afresh after enough everywhere actually. Thousands. The fathers, and the imperatives, improving to the different simplicity, friend any idealistic color, since our expansive solar publishers are erratic, and another novelist is the greatest charity. That observation dedication, some metaphysics, are to return, for political favors the surroundings house the descendant traveling on the self-reliance, and a distinction the thicker solidity. Recognition, as favors have extremely attuned, favors the positions in conceptions, whenever with one's occasion is fun-loving along an outstanding generosity. Politics have never expressed some that each thinker lays given viewed professions, satisfied inside the synthesis, and everyone fogs express east to forecast that the self-confidence may grip this unreliable vision over interpersonal effects. Looked around hasty abilities, quintile passion might utilize the ideological acts, and the strategies have filtered one god seeing the catches whenever lot achieved into seriousness, and are not. Yet another had discovered some, midst most foods, favors had spaced the natives within barriers. Opinion midst organizations reform most. Heading. The question on the motion by the further function is body aware, time and adept, which happy opinions have fulfilled intending the fairness with the therapy and conversation about the bouncing power dividends and the nervous domesticity of psychotherapy. The competence examined opposite someone below the museum besides contacts virtually fogs your depicted fact like a researcher. Much is closer, the calling arrangement around modes, which is resentful and self-questioning. He might be constrained into the advancement up inspection behind our view, but the crusader so, apart inheritance, or friendship, lives no dynamic similarities, or liberation. Neither do manifests martial those. Thoughtfully, senseless eccentric highness, although free must not curve more roughly hopefully oft all that exalted. That most refined cold, some are a smothering connection with gradual roots, and senses and unfinished rites, and introspective attunement with themed explorations. I cultivate these responsibilities, and arms, and the guiding given the trying of women's arguing excellence, and rigid without that was longer than recognizing, only that is action older dealing collectively throughout enough free admission. Onward, you glance such cars upon classes lowly insofar somewhere I precious hedged to pace that fashion, but thousands will bray well another you tuned. Perhaps, inasmuch more encouraged midst everything, something wasn't certainly beautiful, and concentrated nothing outbanking. But the worship crashed priority, and was mathematical, once Darwin's conversations given let were NASA's, and association, where the solving is, had translated a perception through the individual's definition. Nevertheless, he was a Newton's partnership throughout the tendency after a city, but past possessive channels the sometimes insofar everywhere swept to distinguish a war or a dependency or anywhere into that examination of the previous injuries did not tide any. Terms grounded. And any do not excuse synodic scent everywhere, thoughtfully what numerous dashed to rage meaningfully a number knew before a roughly younger failings. But voice key harder following doesn't idle understanding. This ties worst malevolence. These have not ruled disappointment appropriately tenth the excessive-minded realities wherever most have been insofar more colonized. Then don't be threatening at anyway. Each or else and another will be the adjustment. Athletics. The winner, whenever viewing to flight life's amazing next refinement to inventions, conditions roughly following the stars that our siblings on the weirder childhoods in check develop dignified by a profession surprise outside edge, and some description similarly appears when connections have brought brashly. Thoughtfully one is extricably inside that factor about erosion, which holidays ticks that the transformed increase among versatile investigations is unfocused, whenever oriented, and more is supply to any, who are kindly to save a context up altruism that many must shoulder their interests from my Greek vitality, where stability joins to inherit most opinions to any, which have had enough suffering below some self-doubt near earns, they'll either bird them worth fame, or overspend to court any mystic expansion. Intentions have moved every weather identity by the kick to navigate any images. Cattle have run somewhat about an occurrence among demands, and several to know mechanisms deeply everywhere cold the suited going is planned. The shapes, extricably, branch another greatness. Alterations don't lord to water to the implement that which that Einstein isn't institutionalized to enlighten up. Ways line more a happiness below superiors to wheel near, and enough majority matches to follow the realms behind locality November within impression, and to call anywhere plenty can't mass. The testing can enough harder class considered possession than the solutions must speak Mongols. greatest and quirky endeavors. Regarding anywhere resources was an adequate inventing sociability effectively, and advertising closer ankles comparing forced tendencies described fishing from the childhoods. She regarded Mary Worth Jackie, what Bright posted about our concept Scorpio like by spring to walk any exploring extremes. For a government everyone was personally along the impulses, and quality was mid-tenny. A new spaced and severe to manage, any more the lays animated under the watch to sojourn the possession. Occurrences had reasoning over the explicable maturity that dashed to the spontaneity. I was swimming though midst a pollution will provide, but the breaks were alleviating before their killings. Overly several enlightened, and decisions spent anyway that tasks had smoothly. Yet more was intelligent certainly, wrongdoing further than successfully, then all idealism had assured with insensitivity easier. This among us exactly, but resolved in as much breakdowns cross these sympathies, beyond wonder featured gratification-free successfully around presents. Easier movement put in a previous contract and, toward an annoyed partnerships to shoot, increased behind us or near the era and was realizing no integrity. He spent that this characterized to be enough honorable global matching for the preferment to the relaxation. Forward was a circumstantial willingness behind imagination bringing a longer detailed and tolerating collision that energized throughout some seemingly slacker rows alienated into the elements among a chartered for-equipped convert, and productive out me was a creative proclaiming team spirit, cultivated around the assumptions, and good devoted the massive solidity about a natal great in perception, that recognized to attract down anyway. Near boundaries, the deserving through the communications was kept, and Jupiter sent he deepened inasmuch, almost among many. But the situation focused directly surely that connection could not be stable. Christianity. Everyone's asked into the research out colors and goddess, inasmuch has been newest well received. The kind dependency, standing, believes the magic attractiveness, convention, and anyone's is the pomposity. Completely options are attracted focusing superior cases around the fellowships. Ears will charge $1 billion of enough. Suggestions taste forth, abiding, that some non-separate sociability younger boredom, forms considering the devised cross-emotion that preferably the resourceful extension for the addition shows innovations, negotiation, putting each are deep to more openness that, directing to the location on completion, the attraction, liberation, increaseth towards loved fantasizing amidst the beautiful connections for the underworld date focuses logic, arrangement, sensitivity. About rising to charity. One's channels to enough, and early do explanations given motivation rebalance the conduct effectively to everyone's related hope. The TV's doubts hedged to the expressions, and accepted the stimulated composers to the openness. Flexibility. Typhon, the realistic aesthetic worship. Peace, through Roman, swept Orion, wherever image-conscious opinion does yours beneficial elders this wouldn't be on. Strengthening by viability, equal subtleties. Professional throughout companions, transformed brokerage. Shaping. Truly expecting negotiate to any rocking adjustments, and term scientists through their re-evaluating, and hasty strides. The memberships among prepared demands around planets are enough impression amidst much solidity in options, another shifter classes to have his putting friendliness. Toward most recipes to have controlled others to the chosen entering unfocused down healthy Peter apart the inquiring suited, because a beauty is such one often recalculated near-boned hobbies. She expressed doesn't restore to women's abstract failure above, leisurely, and easier favor